Dan, I'm going to make a motion. Will you second it?
I will.
Okay.
Are they doing surgery, except to make wet.
And our britches match, so we're like,
Run it, yeah.
I don't really like it.
Okay, so you're good.
Between the job.
So I said that's ridiculous. They should give her a medication and they can make her comfortable, you know, instead of inactive.
Did you do any of the fundraisers here?
No, it's been convenience here, I've been to
They placed it in surgery on
Yeah, that was right when you left.
No. The whole thing is just a money for the doctor. She may not. You know. Why not? I know, I said that.
Stay home by itself?
He wins. Where else do
I kept getting that car. No, I was not. I left everyone like that. Inspired me. Just to go from the germs to this will be dynamite. So you try to fix it.
We were at class today, and we learned how to do things in Robert's Rules. So I'm going to make a motion for him, and then he's going to second it. So if you don't mind holding for it, let's
We watched World's Worst
board meeting. So we've got some ideas about things that we're going to do first, and I don't have to really tell you that here. Somebody on this that gave us an information. So, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
Sat aside for a little while. Today was the day where you could like stay home. Like, all right, so other than that, you're good. Monday and Wednesday. You guys are done, you're good. Okay. Well, we haven't uploaded it onto the website still. I don't trust us. Good? Good with the cat? I go right now because I get Boy, you got a lot to do. I just must know it.
Call up the police and say,
Yeah.
reserve 3
You got
hours.
it, yeah, you have a few days.
Yeah, well, I don't know how far to go from me. Hey, Jim.
like to call the meeting to order, and instead of the Pledge of Allegiance, well, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but first we're going to have the colors presented by the Boy Scouts.
What time do we call the meeting?
We just call order at 7 p.m.
Scouts attention. Arm. Scouts attention. Please present the colors. Scouts move. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. John, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two. Color guards, return to rank.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay with the board, I would like to move do the Blue Star banner presentation first. We'll move public comment right after that. Is that
Okay with that?
extra? Okay with everybody? All right, thank you. All right. I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay.
I'd like to introduce the ladies here.
Marcia, we can't hear you.
Use the microphone. Just talk into it.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Just talking. Wow, okay. I'd like to introduce the ladies of the Beta Sigma Phi. They're all part of everything with the group, they help handle the Blue Star banner with us. We have Chapter 2, Illinois, Golden Thunder. Thank you guys very much. Boy Scout Troop 149. Scoutmaster Chris Chapman. Thank you, folks. It was beautiful. We would like to start the meeting now with Renee from the Beta Sigma Phi ladies. She has a beautiful reading.
Good evening. The Blue Star Service banner was designed in 1917 by a World War I Army captain whose two sons served on the front line. His banner quickly became a symbol for parents with a child in active military service. It is an American tradition to display a Blue Star Service banner in the window of a home when a loved one is proudly serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. As we support troops deployed overseas, the Blue Star Service banner is a reminder that war touches every neighborhood. If the individual is killed or dies, a smaller golden star is placed over the blue star. The color of the stars are symbolic in that the blue star represents hope and pride, and the gold star represents sacrifice to the cause of liberty and freedom. If you would now turn that direction, we have a very short video. on September 24th, 1917, an Ohio congressman read the following into the congressional record. The world should know of those who gave so much for liberty. The dearest thing in all the world to a father and a mother, their children. Today, Blue Star service banners are displayed by families who have a loved one serving in the armed forces, including activated members of the National Guard and the Reserves. The banner displayed in the front of a window of a home shows a family's pride in their loved ones serving in the military and reminds all of us that preserving America's freedom demands much. We, the Sisters of Preceptor Zeta Theta Chapter of Beta Sigma Phi, proudly present you with this banner and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your family's commitment to our freedom.
Thank you, Rena. Beautiful as usual. Supervisor? Mr. Adams? Would you like to step forward, please?
I would like to read the resolution that we're presenting tonight for the Blue Star Banner families. Whereas the freedom and security that citizens of the United States enjoy today are as a result of continued dedication and vigilance of the armed forces throughout the history of the United States. Whereas the security of the United States depends upon readiness and retention of the men and women of the armed forces, a force comprised of active National Guard and Reserve personnel. Whereas military families are an internal source of strength for the soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guard men of the United States, and have continually proven their dedication, service, and willingness to make great sacrifices in support of service members in the United States. Whereas military families often endure unique circumstances that are central to military life, including long separations from their loved ones, the uncertainty and demands of multiple deployments, school and job transfers, and frequent moves from communities where they establish roots and relationships. Where it is important to recognize the sacrifices, supports, and dedication of families of the men and women who serve in the armed forces. Now therefore be resolved that Mchenry Township recognizes the commitment and ever-increasing sacrifices military families make every day during the current era of protracted conflict. We honor the families of armed forces and thank the families for their dedication and service to the United States.
I would like to now introduce Rowan Thunder, Chapter 2, Vice President Richard Lantis, Past President David White, and all the Rowan Thunder.
She needs to walk in front of you because she's a lot prettier than you. Listen, okay.
Thank you. I am proud to present this.
Would you mind speaking into the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, I am proud to present this.
You still speak very
I
quiet.
do. I always do. They tell me that all the time. But again, thank you and for your son's service. The United States Navy, special time.
You know, why don't you hand this to him, because I want to give this to you. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I used to be a drill sergeant and a jump master at jump school, so I'm kind of loud. So anyway, yeah, it's your mama, Seth. Come here. We in Chapter 2 have a coin that we present to the parent, mothers typically, of the person that's deployed or is in the service. And I'm going to tell you the story of this coin, and you get to hear it again. Over time, coins have been given for various things that dates all the way back to the gladiator time. The way of a liege going home and taking a message to a gladiator's wife or family and saying, hey, he's still okay, just to let you know. It was a way that they would give solace to this guy, give him food and water, and then he would take this mark, as they used to call them back then, and take it back. Over the years, there's a lot of history that goes with these, which I won't go into, but some of the main history is to the guys who are in the service today. If someone had a coin, like I'm fixing to give to you, okay, if you had this coin and you went to a place that sold adult beverages, and you were to drop your coin on the table, well then what would happen is everybody that had a coin had to come out of their pocket with a coin that was presented to them for an honor. And if they couldn't, then that person was typically bound to go see the cash register guy all the time. But we give these out to people with honor. And I hope that you'll take and hold this when your son comes home. You should drop this on the table, because a command master chief, I know, or as a chief master or a master chief, he's got several coins. So you should say, here's my coin, where's yours? And he'll at least show you his chief petty officer coins. Okay? But I'm also the one that always gets the hug.
I can show you a picture of it.
Huh?
I can show you a picture of it.
There you go. You get to hug him.
I also like the lady, don't leave us yet. I'm done with you. The
Oh,
ladies
no.
in the-
But I'm on your side.
Oh, no. Beta Sigma Phi?
I'm sorry.
They have their presentation.
Could we hear a little bit about your son? Can you tell us a little bit about your son?
He enlisted he went to Marquette for 3 years in the Navy ROTC. And then he quit and went active duty, so he never became an officer. He was offered the commission once or twice, but he said he didn't want to go to the dark side. Not sure what that means. And he was under command ship when the first Bush activity happened. And after, in the early 90s, he got off active duty, and then he went back to Iraq, Kuwait, and he's even got a dog that he brought back from Kuwait. And now he's in charge of like 7 bases throughout the country, or people on 7 bases throughout the country. And he's got 31 years. He was in the armed forces right now through our E9, which he is. He doesn't like to be referred to as an E9. In the Navy, if you're a chief, you're a chief.
That's right.
And he's supposed to retire after 30 years. But his admiral is retiring 2 to 3 captains. He got him a waiver, so he's staying until 2020.
There you go.
Anything you want to add, Nancy?
Yes, I thank you very much for recognizing what these fellows do.
We thank him for his service.
And I want he and his brother are both Eagle Scouts. Very good.
Mr. Frank Everett, would you please join us?
Presents to Ken Eldridge, parent of PFC, Private First Class Coral Eldridge of the U.S. Army. Banner, first used during World War I to symbolize the dedication and support of military families
and recognize their contribution to our armed forces during their deployment. Thank you.
I get to do this one too. See, now, this young lady's off at, got a daughter off at boot camp, or AIT, I should say, school. And she's at Fort Benning, which is where I used to throw people out of the airplane. So maybe she'll go to jump school. Maybe. But, and so this becomes more valuable to you when she comes home, because if she does go to jump school, she's gonna have a basic airborne plan, which I have no jump master. You drop this on the table in front of her and say, show me yours, and if she can't, you can have her go get your ROC Coca-Cola. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do I get it?
Thank you so much.
Ladies?
I'll try to do this. So she, ever since she was a little kid, she was always very strong-willed, dedicated, just crazy, that she thought it was easy, basically, right? And she's upset because the women were not tested in the same fashion that the men were. The girls' maximum, like say, push-ups, was the men's minimum. She was really upset about that because she reached the maximum, kept going. They told her to stop before her time was up. She was upset. She wanted to know how far she could go, or at least prove it to everyone else. And she missed, what was it, 20 seconds? So as far as the 2-mile run, the top time was a guy, I don't know what his name is, doesn't matter. But she came in second, off by 20 seconds. And was upset. She's going to do well.
You can go to jump school. I'm not going to stand up here. I'm going to give this to you.
Okay.
Good soldiers never put the coins in a purse, but sometimes you want to.
Keep it nice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That pretty well takes care of things. Can we retire the flag now, please?
Thanks, sir.
Please stand for the retire of the flag.
Scouts, attention. Prepare to retire the colors.
Zach, arms.
Prepare to retire the colors. Retire the colors. Scout salute. 2. Color guard, return to rank.
Thank you everyone for attending.
We'd like to thank everybody for attending, and there are refreshments on the hall. We invite you to stay for a meeting if you want to, but we understand. Go ahead and have some refreshments. Clean up the little spill here.
We have one spot. Y'all get happy there.
Thank you, Jim and Mary, for helping with that small emergency. All right, I'd like to move on to public comment. First person I have on the public comment sign-up sheet is Brendan Slobeck? Slobeck. Yeah, if you can just state your name again and where you're from.
My name is Brendan Spacek. I am from the unincorporated Mchenry Eastwood Manor subdivision, which is a subdivision so small that our zip code is practically a fraction. So I'm actually here today, though, to discuss the highway department. Since the Eastwood Manor subdivision is unincorporated, we are actually entirely reliant on the Mchenry Township Highway Department for all of our road services. And I would like to say, Commissioner Condon, your department does an excellent job with maintaining our roads, And regardless of the upcoming referendum, whether or not to abolish the highway department, we do have one of the best highway departments within all of Illinois right here in Mchenry Township. So I'd like to thank Commissioner Condon for that. One of the most important things that we need to focus on as we head towards this referendum is whether or not it is actually in the favor of the taxpayers to be able to abolish this department. One of the things that can definitely help with that is a consolidation study and an abolishment study. And actually, that is one of the things on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Now, the reality is that our township would have to pass on the cost to the county to maintain the cost of roads for places like the Eastwood Manor subdivision and other areas that are unincorporated within Mchenry Township. And those costs can include things such as the salaries of employees, because the county will have to hire more employees. And the township versus the county may actually have different costs of salaries for those employees and their benefits. It may cost more on the county level. Another thing is they would have to bring in more equipment because of the simple fact that the county cannot maintain, especially during the winter season, all the roadways with the amount of equipment that they have now. If we had to add in an entire township to help with maintaining all of the different areas. So the equipment costs and also the cost of employees will drastically rise. Now the reality is that there are some people that are on this board that are against the idea of having a cost study. But the thing is, if we don't have this cost study, which is a one-time fee to see if this actually is going to be cheaper, but if there's no cost study and it turns out to be more expensive, we're harming our taxpayers, which is irresponsible, especially as our representatives. And taking that one-time fee and saying that, look, we have proof that this would be cheaper to abolish the highway departments. That would be your ultimate political weapon to be able to say that this is the correct thing to do. However, for some reason, there are some board members that are confused on what the purpose of a cost study would be. Whether it is because of the fact that they have already seen figures, whether it was by adding numbers up on their own and they decided to suppress that information, or because they simply don't realize the simple philosophy behind the fact that this will tell us whether or not it's cheaper. I personally am a fiscal conservative Republican, and I'm for limiting the amount of spending that we have within our government. However, there is zero proof, zero evidence that this will limit any sort of spending. So we must focus on being able to have that study. Thank you very much.
Next I have Dorothea King.
I don't know.
Yes, good evening. My name is Dorothea King. I live in Liberty Trails, Clinton Court, McHenry. Several months ago, we had people here from the area of Solon and Ringwood who were very dismayed that a solar array was being planned for the area right north of their subdivision. And consistently, as the months have gone on and these people have presented over and over in different venues and had their own village meetings, they bring up the problem of drainage in their subdivision. So I am getting questions as I go around the county from other people asking me, doesn't the township take care of drainage? I mean, whether these people get the solar array or not, they have complained and complained and complained about a drainage problem. So I just have two questions because people are asking me this question. In other parts of McHenry County, doesn't the township take care of drainage problems? And has this been looked into by our township? Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Next I have Robert Beltran.
My name is Robert Beltran. I live at 2814 Bregner Road, McHenry. And as you might suspect, I'm here to talk about the referendum and the cost study that the electors voted unanimously to have at the annual meeting. This is not optional, this is required. And as of yesterday, I provided the township with a demand letter from my attorney calling upon the township to act on behalf of the electors as they were instructed. And let me just read the last paragraph and the bullet points on this. Consider this letter a formal objection to the current certification of this ballot question. I'll skip over the legalese. If the board continues to ignore the clear direction of its electors, we shall pursue all legal recourses to force their compliance. Ignoring the will and the direction of the annual meeting electors is a deprivation of the constitutional rights as well as express powers. It is regrettable that we must make these demands, and our hope is that the board will remedy this situation speedily and in good faith by doing the following. 1. Decertify the question for the ballot as being premature ahead of the August 20th ballot submission deadline, or otherwise direct its removal from the November 28th general election ballot. Number 2. Publicly provide what approaches, plans, or options for transitioning and resolving the execution of road district duties and which entities might take over the road district's duties in the event of a consolidation in a format similar to 16 ILCS 1.25 requirements. In short, what that means is figure out what the alternatives are. Number 3, begin taking bids from and initiating work on the cost study that the electors requested in order to most effectively determine the best course of action for their local government. And finally, refrain from placing any questions regarding road district consolidation on any ballot for any election unless the public at large has had access to the results of the cost study for a period of no less than 90 days before the board votes on any such resolution. In the event that this is not, this demand letter is not comported with, we will be moving to an injunction. Thank you.
Stephen Arvira is next on the list.
No, Mr. Adams, if you would have read it, you would have seen that was for a later section.
It says nothing to that, but okay.
Section 7.
I'm sorry. Oh, are you trying to say I understand now? Okay, I understand. Okay, we'll have you at a later session. Leon H. Van Avery.
Good evening. I'm Leon Van Avery, retired highway commissioner. I'll explain what these are for in just a minute. Using the Herald's wage analysis, Mr. Condon makes roughly $100,000 a year. I talked with Mary, and there's a little over 25,000 properties in Mchenry Township that are taxable. Not every property is taxed the same. It's all that owns a lot in Johnsburg or McCollum Lake or Wonder Lake is not charged the same taxes that Walmart or Dick's or somebody like that is. But to make what I'm going to tell you a little bit easier to understand, we're going to say everybody pays the same amount of taxes towards Mr. Condon's wages. 25,000 properties, that means each one of us that has a piece of property is paying him $4 out of our tax bill. He's a professional engineer. He doesn't have to go to H.R. Green or Woodman or any of those kind of places to take a look at what's going to eventually happen, where the subdivisions are going to be coming back, knocking on our doors, saying we want to be taken in, we want to build roads. As highway commissioner, I can understand plans, but I didn't have the real hard expertise to look at it. Mr. Condon does. He designs roads. He knows what's going on. That's $4. This is what you get for it. A can of peanuts. Or you can go down to McDonald's, you can buy a 10-pack of chicken McNuggets. Personally, for $4 can of peanuts, I'd like the opportunity to call them and tell them there's a pothole on Barnardville Road. There's a tree hanging over a stop sign down Eastwood Manor. I have that ability. If he loses his job, who are we going to call? One of these guys on the board? We can't even get them to do a study that they were told to do. You know, that's not going to happen. You know, I want the ability to call somebody and talk to them. I don't remember which president it was, but I heard the phrase earlier today, the buck stops here. Here it is. You got a problem with the roads, that's the man you call. Who's going to go out in the middle of the night when the sheriff's dispatcher calls and says, we got a problem out on the road, there's a tree down. It happens to be on Ridge Road. Ridge Road is shared by Mchenry Township, the city of Mchenry, Village of Bull Valley, and London Township. Well, yes, where's that tree at? Well, it's on Ridge Road. They don't know. Somebody's got to get out of bed, go out there and look at it before they call the guys out. You know, you don't want to spend overtime, have the guys go out there to find out a tree that's in the village or the city of McHenry. That's the kind of stuff that man does. I know what he does. I did it for 10 years. And I think that it's worth keeping him around. And it's not just him. And that $100,000 I was talking about, guess what? You can't buy that can of peanuts. They just lowered his wages to $45,000. You can't even get that can of peanuts anymore. And the only other thing I got to say is this is for the board. Nuts to them.
That concludes public comment. Board, we move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular town meeting on July 12th. Do we have any corrections to those minutes?
There's no corrections. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Anderson to approve the minutes with no corrections. May I have a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Rakestraw. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any nays? None being heard, it's unanimous. The minutes are approved. We don't need to review any executive session minutes at this time. Moving on to the motion for the approval of the receipts and bills of the town fund.
I'll make a motion to approve the receipts and pay the bills for the town fund. We, the undersigned members of the Mchenry Township Board of Trustees, certify that we have, this 9th day of August, 2018, examined and audited the amounts due for the items specified in the claims attached and hereby authorized payments of same. Total reimbursements to be approved, 0. Total bills to be approved, $36,135.91. Total bills paid prior to audit, $44,765.32. Total to be approved, $80,901.23. Total receipts, $34,324.40.
Okay, so you're making a motion to approve the bills,
I did.
or pay, accept the receipts, pay the bills.
I made a motion to approve the receipts and pay the bills.
Okay, motion by Mr. Anderson. May we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Wojcicki. We need a roll call vote. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Adams, yes. Mr. Rakestraw.
Yes.
And Mr. Wojcicki.
Yes.
All yeses, no nays, motion carries. Next, we're moving on to the motion for the approval receipts of the General Road Bridge Fund.
We, the undersigned members of the Mchenry Township Board of Trustees, certify that we have this 9th day of August 2019 examined and audited amounts due for the items specified in the claims attached and hereby authorized payments of same. Total reimbursements to be approved, 0. Total bills to be approved, $167,808.70. Total bills paid prior to audit, $15,367.52. Total to be approved, $183,176.22. Total receipts, $1,922.86. I make a motion that we pay the bills for the general road and bridge fund.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Rakestraw, to accept the receipts and pay the bills of the general road and bridge fund. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Anderson. Roll call vote, Mr. Rakestraw.
Yes.
Mr. Wojciechowski.
Yes.
Mr. Adams, yes. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, all yeses, motion carries. Moving on to the motion for the approval of the receipts and bills for the permanent Hard Road Fund.
We, the undersigned members of the Mchenry Township Board of Trustees, certify that we have this 9th day of August 2018 examined and audited amounts due for the items specified in the claims attached and hereby authorize payment of same. Total reimbursement to be approved, 0. Total bills to be approved, $12,319.64. Total bills paid prior to audit, $23,404.35. Total to be approved, $35,723.99. Total receipts, $691.90. I make a motion to approve the receipts, pay the bills.
Okay, Mr. Wojciechowski has made a motion to accept the receipts and pay the bills of the permanent Hard Road Fund.
I'll second.
It was seconded by Mr. Rakestraw. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Adams, yes. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Rakestraw.
Yes.
Mr. Wojciechowski.
Yes.
All yeses, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Fund transfers, none at this time. Moving on to new business. The first thing, Bob, and if I misworded this, I apologize. I thought this is what you wanted. Consideration of sending a request to the McHenry County Board requesting that they conduct a cost study to determine the financial outcomes of consolidating the McHenry County Townships from 17 to 8 or less. And I thought you meant ensuring the costs of all townships.
And I did, and I misspoke on that.
Okay.
Because I misread that real quick when I first glanced at it.
Okay.
So it was correct, that's exactly what I said.
Oh, okay.
So I corrected it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is up for discussion. Bob, since you brought this forward, do you want to discuss this? Do you want to start the discussion?
I did invite board member Chuck Wheeler. I don't see him in the audience, so I don't know why he didn't come up here. But I think that we should, I want to move forward, that we need to look into this whole township situation throughout the county. It was a big issue 3 years ago. The county board at that time was on record about moving into paying for that study. But I also think that study should be involved with all the townships. I think the townships also should have an interest in this. We heard quite a bit tonight about a study for the ballot initiative that's for consolidating the road district into the township, which that is a very simple type situation compared to what we're talking about here. But I think that we need to, at least from our board, supporting this board, to move forward here and contact the townships and in the county, whether it's by letter or invite some other people here to address the board.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other further discussion on this?
Well, this kind of relates to what I requested
Yes.
you to contact the townships adjacent to us, and probably it might be a good time for you to, if you've received any responses to.
Mike, use it.
Did you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I put a request that we contact the 5 townships or 4 townships that are adjacent to us, and
Talk to them.
I need to take the mic off the.
Hold it.
and
There you
Or put it closer to you.
go. Just take it off.
that's all.
Yeah, hold the mic. There you go.
It relates to having the 4 adjacent townships that we requested information from, whether they would be interested in consolidating. So I think that would be a real good step towards what Bob was talking about there. Have you received anything from these townships?
I have not at this point in time. I have not had any communication.
But it has
The
been
letter
sent.
has been sent out. I'm sure it got sent out, I I believe the Monday after our last meeting. Okay, I'm sure I will make some phone calls to initiate some conversations regarding that.
I think that would be a good idea, and that would certainly pertain to what we're doing here. I see an upside in doing that.
Because that letter said that our names, both Mike's name and my name, is not going to contact us. I've had no contact. I mean, Mike has not had contact.
Right. You haven't either, okay.
I think it's very disappointing that you have a unit of government that cannot respond to a letter. Is this unusual, or do we need more time, like a month, could we expect a response? Or?
Let me give them a call. You know, all townships have lots of things on their plate, and if they got pushed to the bottom of the pile for some reason, not that it should have, let me make a phone call and see what the response is. And we'll report back at the next meeting.
Okay, and then would you also, in a phone call, let them know that that
yes.
was brought up about
sure.
expanding it to a county-wide effort?
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you.
It sounds like they're not responding, that they're not interested.
Well, I don't know that we can assume that. Let me make a contact first. Let them tell us that, if that's the case. All right.
One more thing.
Sure.
If there is in fact interest, can you get with us and maybe possibly put a meeting together where we could have representatives from these different townships get together with us and discuss the possibilities?
I believe we can, but we can't have a quorum, right, Mr. Motel? We have to
publish it. Well, we can publish it.
We can publish it, okay. Yes, that can be arranged if, yes.
So,
all right.
So could this be brought up again at the next meeting for further discussion on this, or do I have to bring that up?
No, I would be happy to put it back on the agenda under old business for the next meeting.
Okay, I don't have to bring it up?
No, if you're telling me that's what you want.
I would like to have that, yeah, see how, if you got a response back from the phone call.
Right, I think we need to have more conversations with them first, and then we can bring this back.
I just wanted to initially get it started.
Okay. All right. Is there any more discussion on this? Okay, at this time then, we'll just move it to old business for the next meeting and further discuss it then and possibly take action. Okay, then if we can move on, if there's no objections. We have next on new business the adoption of a Mchenry Township noxious weed ordinance, which we have put in your packet. And a new one was sent out. There was a few little changes. I do have, I don't know, you should have gotten a new one, but the only difference was, the only difference was collecting some additional fees if we had to do this. And I believe Mr. Anderson contacted Patricia Nam. Is it Nam? Nam? There she is, okay. And she's here to answer any questions you might have regarding the county and what they do. And then we can answer questions, I can answer questions what might be different from what they do.
The reason I contacted her was I'm not in a position of saying that noxious weed shouldn't be dealt with. My position is not a function of Mchenry Township, it's a function of the county government. Okay. When I first responded to her, I think for coming, is that if people are complaining to the township and we don't offer that service anymore, but then they have to contact the county, and I'm not so sure that they're doing that. So
I believe we've been directing them to do that, but
we don't know if that.
I don't know if actually been. From talking to Patricia, I would doubt it based upon the number of complaints she's getting.
I like to hear what she's got to say. Okay. Go for her. Yeah. So, thank you.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear me.
Oh, sure.
Oh, just thank you for coming. Is there something you could just come up and speak about the program? Are you getting any calls from people from Wonder Lake that have noxious weed problems from the township?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Come up to the podium.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so the health department does, on behalf of the county, respond to the noxious weed complaints. It is, a statutory requirement. Its origin is in agricultural law to protect agricultural properties. So there is a list in the noxious weed law that lists a small number of them, a few thistles, a few in the sorghum family, and the invasive plant kudzu is another one of them. So we can respond on behalf of the county. We have ordinance authority to do so in the public health ordinance. And then we would follow up our normal process. So if we identify those, we will follow up with a notice of violation. If they do not correct it by mowing, eradicating, plowing, spraying, etc., we will follow up with a final notice. We do have a very small amount of money to mow properties that are not compliant. That is fairly unusual. But to answer Mr. Anderson's question, and Mr. Adams regarding the number, we do receive a small number of those complaints. In 2017, it was 22. That'd be throughout the county. So far this year, we've received 7, and one of those was in the Wonder Lake area. But what we do receive actually more frequently would be complaints about long grass and someone that's not maintaining their lawn, things like that. Our ordinance does not give us the authority to address those. So really we can only address a noxious weed specifically as it's listed in the statute. That's our limitation.
Okay. Any other questions of Patricia?
Sam, you said you have some people that contacted you. Did you ask them, forward them to contact the county that we no longer have that service?
Well, I remember when this first came up, when we got rid of the noxious weed ordinance, the supervisor mentioned that the reason it was on the books was the county didn't want to deal with it. And I remember you saying that.
Yes, and I talked to Patricia today. Before I took office, I was informed quite a few years ago that the county was not going to do that any longer, and I was operating under that assumption. I didn't call them, so
that was a mistake.
That's a mistake on my part, yes.
Okay.
But there is a further thing that we need to discuss here, is that, as she's told you, they will deal with noxious weeds only. In our ordinance, we can also deal with unruly lawns. And that's probably truthfully the majority of the complaints that we get here. They will not address that. Is that correct? So if your neighbor doesn't cut his lawn and it's 15 inches high, the county's not going to address that because it may be lawn grass, not noxious weeds. So upon further investigation, that's what the township would like to do, because we have residents calling, and the majority of the time that's what they're asking for. Their neighbors is not maintaining their property.
And what kind of numbers are you talking about here?
I normally get 20 to 25 complaints a year is what we normally get. Out of those 20 to 25 complaints a year, I would say 15, 18 of them with one letter to them resolve the problem themselves. There are those other few that don't, and then we have to take action.
So it's really not a big issue. We have about 40,000 residents. I don't know how many properties we have.
It's not, but if you're that person who's living next door to this, it's a big issue to you. So that's all I can tell you. So.
I'd like to make another point that just by having the law on the books encourages people to take care of their property without the township's action. Like some of these bank-owned properties or absentee landlords. Just with that ordinance on the books is an incentive.
That is true. We've had bank properties that, when in 2008 hit and we had all those foreclosures, the banks were not taking care of them, but then when we did contact most of the banks, they did do something about it.
I supported the weed ordinance at our first vote on this. And what I would
thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm sorry. Please sit down.
What I would like to do is try to show the people that this is not costing us a great deal, perhaps nothing at all.
Well, actually, with this new resolution, there was something missing in our previous resolution, and Mr. Milton and I discussed this. Could you address that, Mr. Milton,
sure,
regarding administrative costs?
Absolutely. Just back up for 1 second. For the trustees, one of the things is being whether or not the statute's well grounded, and the township board has the authority in order to make and adopt ordinances such as this. 60 ILCS 1/105-15 provides for this meaning giving you, the board, that authority to provide for cutting of weeds or grass or trimming of trees and bushes. So that's where that authority is coming from. The second part of that is it also allows for the reasonable cost of collection for that weed cutting or the grass cutting. And this particular ordinance addresses three issues. One, the cost in the event that you as a township has to spend your funds in order to do it, or you hire somebody to do it. There's an administrative fee for a reasonable cost for doing it, and attorney's fees, because there's a fee for filing and sending out notices and filing with the recorder's office. So those fees and those costs then would then get passed on to the owner under this particular,
or the old one?
The owner of the property at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say that somebody goes into foreclosure, walks away from the property and never pays a dime towards any of this. Are those costs recuperable or not?
Okay, good question. The next issue is what can you do? Well, the statute provides for a notice provision. I mean, you just can't go out and cut the grass. You gotta, as you said, you have to go out and give notice to the individual and provide that notice. Well, that notice is then given after a period of time and a lapse of time. Then you can then in fact do something. And at that point in time, you could file a lien for those costs. You can cut it and then file a lien against the property. Now, how does that affect the property? Well, what would happen is when you file a lien on a piece of property, then it becomes an encumbrance on that particular property. So if somebody goes to sell that and that individual is gone and someone is buying it, they're going to have to clean that lien up at the time of closing. So whether it's the buyer or the seller or whoever's doing it, there will be funds coming back to release that lien. And what typically happens is you get a call from a title company or another attorney saying, look, we see that the township has a lien on the property for X amount of dollars. We would like that released. You prepare a payoff letter then for those costs that you've incurred and recoup those monies. So that would be the typical process. Now, this particular statute also provides for the foreclosure of that. I don't anticipate the township doing that, meaning foreclosing on a piece of property, but you would typically leave that lien on there until there's a transaction or transfer of sale.
So, in essence, what I'm trying to get at is that if we go ahead and reintroduce this bill, or this motion, and the townships begins doing this again, these costs that are incurred will be recouped.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The only question that I would ask is to monitor your administrative costs for exercising. Right now you have a 15%, in this particular ordinance, you call out a 15% as a reasonable amount. If you find that it's more than that, then I would suggest maybe you're looking at adjusting that administrative piece in order to cover your reasonable costs. But at this point, it's 15%.
So Craig, as far as costs that we may not be able to recoup, it's you going out, looking at the property.
It would be whoever, myself or whoever I would send out there. We actually, when we do this, we go take a picture of the property and send it with the letter to show that, well, you might call in and complain and there's nothing wrong with the property, so we have to go make sure there is.
Right.
So then we go take a picture of the property to verify what's wrong with it, if there is something wrong with it. And then we send that with a letter of complaint, or a letter of notice to the people to please, take care of this issue. So the only costs, the costs are minimal in the cost of the letter, okay?
$50.
If that, yes. And as I'm saying, it's not hundreds per year, it's 20 to 25 per year has been typically is what we've received. But, I can't tell you if they're all valid, but the ones that were valid were definitely issues.
So if a property does need to be mowed,
correct,
do you send township people or do you subcontract that out to?
We subcontract it. We have typically subcontracted it out because what happens is when you get, weeds or grass 12 to 18 inches high, you can't see what's underneath there. And we originally, I was told, used to cut those properties and damage our mowers, etc. So we found it much more economical to subcontract that out to a professional service, and then they bill us for that, and then we give it to Mr. or whoever our attorney would be to file under the lien. So all that money comes back, and this way we're not damaging our own equipment. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, Jim. The observation costs, the 15, 20, 25, 50, whatever, can that be added to the mowing cost as a incorporated cost in doing it?
So if they go out and make a determination and send a letter, and then cut the grass, it's done. Okay. If they don't cut the grass and they have to go out and subcontract out, and we say it's $1,000, just for simple math, $1,000 to do it, then in addition to the $1,000, there's a $150 charge for the administrative fee on top of it. So it would be $1,150 plus whatever. Yes.
And that should cover the ones that do take care of it.
No more questions.
Okay. Does anybody else have any more questions on this?
Yes, can we table this so we have a chance to go over this in the next meeting? I'd like to go over and see what the different numbers are, see if, you've got 12 inches, is that the right height? I haven't had a chance to really go over it in detail.
Let me address that real quickly.
Sure.
Originally, Mr. Middleton sent me 8 inches, and I felt that was those aren't, a lot of cities and stuff use 8 inches. I feel that's unreasonable. You might be coming to my house if it's 8 inches occasionally when it's raining out a lot. So I felt 12 inches is a reasonable, because the other problem that you sometimes incur is you don't like your neighbor, let's say, okay? So you just want to get them in trouble, you call up, but the grass might be a little bit high. So we want to have a reasonable measure, and that's what I felt was a reasonable measure, but that certainly can be revised.
Well, I'd just like to go over and see, I just glanced at it, 12 inches, I don't know if that's the right height or not, but I've not had a chance to really go over this, I'm going to be comfortable voting it.
I guess
but I do think, though, that my position would be changing here, so since the county only handles noxious weeds.
Right.
So there's something that, certainly that, they're limited to do just that one noxious weed we would have done.
I have no problem with that, but does the rest of the board, is that what they would like to do, or?
I'd like to move forward.
Would you make a motion then?
I will make a motion that we adopt this resolution.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Rakestraw to adopt this resolution.
I will second it.
We have a second by Mr. Majewski. The question has been called. Is there any more discussion at this point? Okay, then I'm going to call the question. Let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Anderson.
I'll be voting no. I haven't had a chance to really
Okay, got that. Mr. Adams, yes. Mr. Rakestraw.
Yes.
Mr. Majewski.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 yeses and 1 nay. Motion carries for the weed ordinance. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on. We have a review of the process of filling the vacancy of trustee explanation that I believe, I don't remember who brought that up. I think it was Mr. Anderson. So I will let Mr. Militello address that since he is the attorney.
As you all know, we had a trustee submit a letter of resignation, and as you are aware, there was also a publication on the website introducing what the steps were as far as following forward as far as an appointment process, and I believe that was on the website. But for purposes of the process and the requirements, I'm just going to go down some of the basic statute pieces so that everybody's aware of them. When somebody resigns and now it's up to the township board to make that appointment, one of the issues is when the township board accepts the resignation of an officer, the township clerk shall make the minutes of the acceptance. Well, that was done, I believe, in July when there was a special meeting.
I believe it was July 5th.
When that particular resignation letter was accepted by the board at that particular time. The vacancy then is to be filled by the township board. So this particular board then has the power then to appoint that next trustee for purposes of appointing. Some of the requirements, what are those specific requirements? 60 ILCS 1/55-5 provides that the appointee must be a legal voter. 55-5 also provides that the appointee must be a resident of the township for 1 year. 60-5D provides that the appointee must be a member of the same political party as the person vacating the office if the person vacating the office was elected as a member of an established political party. And I believe that those 3 particular provisions were provided on the website as far as that particular process. There's one additional item on there, is that the appointee may not be a convicted felon. 60 ILCS 1/55-6 specifically provides that particular individual. Now, what typically happens in, not just in township and county, when there's an appointment process, they usually ask for some type of application process in order to take those applications, to bring them in, to go through them, to make sure those questions are being asked and answered, and also look at qualifications. The next step would then be, I believe you had a time frame of August 3rd as far as your applications coming in. It would be very prudent for the board then to take those candidates and schedule, if you want to schedule interviews, set up a time to schedule interviews with those individuals and have some discussions, and then make decisions. You're going to have to make decisions in a public session as far as making voting decisions, but the Open Meetings Act allows you as a board to consider in closed session discussions regarding and interviewing candidates for the replacement of a position. So if this particular board, let's say you had 5 applications or 2 applications, or whatever the number of applications, it would be very prudent for this board to have a special meeting to review those take all those applications and review them and call in those individual candidates to have some discussions if you so choose. It would then be a basic motion by this particular board. You'd want to get it on an agenda item as far as the appointment of your trustee at that point in time.
Would that also be done in closed session? Or
No, absolutely not. The closed session could be done for purposes of interview. You don't necessarily have to do it in closed session. You certainly could. The Open Meeting Act allows you to do that. I believe it's, I forget the exact number, but I can get that for you. It does allow you to do that. But for purposes of making any decisions, trustee, all your trustees' decisions and those discussions regarding the appointment and then your specific voting has to be done in an open meeting. So my recommendation would then be to, once you've had those meetings and had those discussions, you could also at the same agenda item have an open meeting part where you then have appointment of trustee, and then you can make your appointment at that point in time.
So how many days have we got left to get this done in 60 days?
It would be 60 days from, it would count the next day after.
July 6th.
So starting with June 21st?
No. What was the day?
I believe we had a meeting the day after the 4th of July, which was July 5th, when we accepted the resignation officially.
July 5th. Okay,
so then we have.
So we got 60 days from July 5th. Is that correct? Okay.
That is correct, right?
Correct.
So then our deadline is what day? When is it?
I'll count that out exactly for you. September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Okay, gentlemen, I can tell you, I currently have 6 applications in my office. My applications are closed. So I would say we need to, we'll have to all agree upon a date that we can interview candidates, I guess, would be the next step in a special meeting, which we could have an open session if we wanted, or we could do the interviews in closed session. That would be up to the board.
Who are the ones that, who are the applicants?
Okay, you're gonna test my memory here. Okay, the applicants, I have 6, are a Mr. Gary Barlow, who served on our board before, a Mr. Neil Shepler, who served on our board before, a John McCredo, who used to be a committeeman and is again a Republican committeeman, and a Mark Jagger, who was a committeeman, I don't believe he is now.
I think his last name is Yeager.
Yeager, okay, excuse me. Then I have Mr. Steve Beer has applied, and a Joanne Newman. Those are the 6 applicants that I have.
So what is your recommendation of the time frame here? It doesn't look like we got a whole lot of time to waste.
We don't. I guess we need to talk about a couple dates because I have to I imagine we're going to have to do these in the evening because most of these candidates work and they have jobs, so I think it's going to be hard for them to come during the day. So we're going to need an evening session. maybe we could agree on a couple dates here. Tuesday, the 14th, or Wednesday, the 15th, or Thursday, the 16th, would that work? Before 7. Okay. Mr. Miltel advises me it should be before 7 to count history.
For the Thursday.
For the Thursday, it needs to be before 7. So let's look at Tuesday or Wednesday, the 13th or
Tuesday, I
14th.
got school board.
Okay, 14th Wednesday, would that work?
Not for me.
Not for you, okay.
We could even do it Monday.
We could do a Monday, the 13th.
Do you have enough time to get the?
Well, that's the problem, that's why I'm gonna need a couple dates, because I may call these people and.
Are we
Yeah,
trying
but
to
you
do them all
gotta
at the same,
post-
same
Don't you
time?
have to post this first?
I don't, yeah, I do only have to post 48 hours is all I have to post, but I don't think the 13th is gonna give us enough time. I think we're gonna have to be later than that. How about, let's look at the following week, the 20th, 21st, 22nd?
I'm gonna be on vacation the last week of August.
Okay,
That's I'm concerned about it.
okay.
We could do it the 20th, 21st, because if he's the last.
Oh, the last week is the 27th, so how about the week of the 20th?
21st, and 2nd.
21st, 20th, 21st, and 22nd, that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If we could agree on 2 dates so I can find out,
I can't do Tuesdays.
you can't do Tuesdays.
No.
Okay, now we're the 20th Monday or the 22nd Wednesday, would those two work?
Monday will work for me.
Okay,
Fine with me.
The 20th,
is a Monday,
okay,
and the 22nd is a Wednesday.
is the 22nd, okay. I think I'm okay, I'll check those out.
Okay.
Those 2 days.
I will use those 2 dates. Bob, why don't you check that out and call me tomorrow, let me know if that's gonna work before I call candidates and. So,
Wednesday is out for me, so.
yeah, we don't even, Wednesday's out for you.
Is that the 22nd?
Yeah.
Oh, so we got Monday.
We go to Thursday, the 23rd. Does that
That'll
work
work for me.
Thursday, the 23rd?
So it's either Monday or Thursday.
Monday or Thursday at this point.
Thursday, 23rd?
So Monday the 20th or Thursday the 23rd.
Okay.
Okay, I will
I'll
contact.
call you tomorrow.
Okay, make sure. Everybody, relook at your calendars, and if you have a conflict with either of those dates, let me know tomorrow by noon, so I can contact candidates.
And then all those applicants, you would receive those by the 3rd of August?
Yes, I did. They all applied within the time limit.
Mr. Adams, can I be recognized?
Yes, you may.
The Republican, the Mchenry Township Republican Party, did they have any recommendations, and did people go in front of them? They seem that they would be the influencing body in replacing the Republican on the board.
They did have candidates go in front of them, and I believe they had, I don't want to talk for them, but they had many applicants. They narrowed it down to 4, and they're going to recommend all 4 would be fine to fill the vacancy, was my understanding.
Are they part of the 6 that you received, or is it?
They are part of the 6 that I received, yes.
Well, those are 4 names you read off, the first.
They have the first 4 names I read off.
Yeah, Chaplain, yeah.
Yes. The other 2 did not apply with the Republican Party as far as I am aware, or were not chosen for whatever reason.
So does that have any, so again, if I might be recognized?
Yes.
Does that have any influence on it, the Republican Party saying, recommending those 4? Does that have any influence, or should it have any influence?
My personal opinion is it should, because they've gone through the rigors to be interviewed or ready and to be vetted out as good candidates by the Republican Party, so.
It certainly has no requirement to go through that process. Before a candidate goes through it.
There's no
requirement to go in front of that.
There is no requirement to go through that process for this board, you're correct.
So to me, that immaterial to me.
Okay.
So this meeting that we're going to have, will the applicants be requested to be there?
Yes,
For an interview?
they will be requested to be there for an interview, yes. So you can, I think it's important that you interview each one of them and determine who would be the best qualified candidate for the township to make this replacement.
There's 2 people on this list, aren't they, independents?
Excuse me?
Republicans. two people on this list,
Who would that be?
there'll be Mr. Barlow and Mr. Shepley.
They are no longer Republicans, they are no longer independents, they are elected Republican precinct committeemen.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. I want to further clarify, the last name on the list, I have not had time, and I will do that tomorrow. This Joanne Newman, I have not had time to check her voting record. I need to do that to make sure that she's Republican.
She's a Republican.
Okay, well, I have to check the record to make sure, but I believe you. Okay, so we'll move on then, okay? Everybody happy with that?
I'm good.
All right. Last thing, I put back on here again, conducting a Mchenry Township cross study regarding the elimination of the Mchenry Township road districts requested by the electors at the annual meeting. The reason I keep putting on here, I keep getting asked by electors if we're gonna do this or if we're not gonna do this, so is there any discussion regarding this?
Well, one thing that I'm not gonna support it, but I just want to say one thing about that issue, is that House Bill 607, which was introduced and got through the system by Representative Sam Yingling, there's nothing in that bill, and that I know, and maybe I'm trying to tell, is there anything in that bill says that you requires a cost study?
Are you talking about the new statute that was adopted in the ordinance that we passed, that there's nothing in there?
Yeah.
No, there is not.
And there's nothing in the law that says requires that.
No, there's not.
And I'd like to say this publicly too, that bill passed the Senate with an 84% vote. They didn't think they had to have a study. It passed the House 67%. They didn't think they had to have a study. So those are pretty demanding numbers there.
I can comment on how well our legislators manage our money, so.
Well, there's a lot of criticism against you in the township here too, how your money goes out here too, so.
I understand that, but.
Whoever's got public money get criticized.
You're correct, but we're not billions of dollars.
Same thing with the school district.
But anyway, the law does not say that you have to have that.
No,
Okay.
does not.
So there's no way that I'm going to support that.
Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Adams, if I might be recognized?
You may be recognized.
And I could ask the attorney, so basically if we did not proceed with the study, because I was not here at the meeting that was discussed, and I just want to be clarified because it doesn't affect the road district. At the annual meeting, the electorate voted to have the study done. The trustees are at the enforce the will of the electorate. The electorate told them to do the study. They decided not to do the study. Mr. Beltran stated tonight that if you don't do the study, we're going to file for an injunction. So basically, we don't do the study, now we're going to end up in court. Is that where we're headed with this?
Good question. In response to his comment, public comment, it begs the question of whether or not there's probable or imminent litigation at hand as far as if that's truly coming. I did receive the letter that he's talking about from his attorney. It would also beg for this board to go into executive session to discuss that letter. I'm not prepared to comment on that letter at this point, but I can say that based on his comments and based on the letter, I would suggest that maybe there's probable litigation.
Can I ask what your comments were when they asked you at the time when it was discussed? I was unfortunately not at that meeting, but at that time, didn't you say that that potential existed?
Litigation?
Yes.
I always comment that there's potential litigation. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you know, when you have two sides of an opinion, there's always that potential.
There's two sides. There's not two sides of an opinion here, though. There's a decision. There's a statement by the electorate to do the study, and that's a requirement as far as you would know. Is that correct?
I can comment and say that the electorate voted to have this board move forward with a cost study, yes.
And in your legal opinion, would that require this board to do that?
In response to that, I'm going to defer on that response as a result of potential litigation.
Okay, so.
Okay. So we're having some discussion on this question. Is there any further discussion on this question at this time? Any motions on this question?
But I would like, based on the comment, public comment,
Okay.
to take a 10-minute executive session when it gets to that point
Yes.
for that purpose.
Is there any motion?
Well,
Only when you get to it.
that'll be down the agenda here later.
But yes, I would like that. That's good.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not hearing any motion, so the question will resolve, will just stay on the table. All right, any proposed agenda items for next meeting besides, Bob, the one that you mentioned for old business?
Yes, I have another one. I brought this up before, and I think that being a trustee, and I think this would be a good issue for our township board to get involved with. I think it's totally wrong that you can be a state representative, a state senator, and simultaneously be a township supervisor or township assessor. And I'd like to give you an agenda. I've never read the law, but I guess you shouldn't assume things, but it's been going on for many years, so that has been going on many years where people can have both those jobs simultaneously. How do you stop something like that? You talk to the public, I don't know if and I challenge anybody just to go out and ask the public if they think that's right. They'll tell you that's totally wrong. Most people, when I bring that subject, it's against the law. So I think we need to address that, though, because it is an issue, and we do have an assessor here that is in the position to move forward to do that. So I think it's an issue that is right in front of us here, and I'd like to see an agenda for some discussion and to see where it goes.
Okay. Does the rest of the board have the same feeling on that? Is there a motion to put this on the agenda?
Well, does it require a majority vote if you ask for an agenda item?
Well, it requires 2 trustees to tell me they want it on the agenda.
Well, isn't just this an issue of finding out whether it's legal or not? So why would there be a motion?
Well, I can answer the question. Currently, it is legal. That's not a, is it right or morally correct? That's a whole other issue.
Well, then my position, if you know it is, I'd like to see it in writing, and also I'd like to say, what can we do about it? Well, how do we change that law? And I think from this board, from my end of it, I'd like to move forward how we change that law.
Okay, does someone else agree that they would like to discuss this at the next?
I would like to.
Okay, we have 2 trustees that agree. Okay, we will put it on for discussion.
Can I be recognized again?
Yes.
Does that include school boards? School boards and township trustees, multiple boards in that fashion too?
I can tell you that if you're in the school board, you can't be a county board member.
What about a trustee?
There's
Same
nothing to
thing.
do with it.
So if you're gonna discuss it, that's a suggestion.
Check it out.
If I can just make a comment, and for all of you out there, if you have the internet and you want to go on research, Attorney General opinions. If you go out to the Attorney General opinions, they call it compatibility of offices. They've done this for many years, from 70s, 80s, 90s, and they typically will offer, they call it official opinions, but they kind of come down with some unofficial opinions as well. But if you go on the website, on the Attorney General's website, you'll see out there the opinions that are offered. Typically, it'll be Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information, things like that. But then there's a section in the content section regarding compatibility of offices. There's an area that's typically looked at.
So can I ask a further question about that? So you're saying that they look at these compatibility of offices and they believe these are okay because they're not conflicting somehow?
No. So what happens is you get a county board member.
Okay.
And the county board member says, oh, I want to be a recorder. Officer recorder. So then the state's attorney's office sends a letter to the Attorney General's office asking for an opinion as to whether there's a compatibility issue between the county board position and the recorder's position. So then that's where that all comes into play. And there's various positions, whether it's school board, fire districts, park districts, things like that. So there's just different positions.
Okay.
So check it out, Mr. Road Commissioner.
We will put it on
If you're concerned about it.
on the agenda for the next meeting for discussion.
I thought you were the one that's
brought it up.
concerned about it.
All right.
As far as I know, it's okay. Check it out. It's not.
As far as I know, it's okay
I wouldn't leave this position, you know that.
And as far as I know, it's okay for somebody to be a state senator and a local assessor. So, check it out.
Okay, let's move on. Any further discussion on that? No? Okay. All right. Is there any other proposed agenda items for the next meeting? Okay, none being heard, I'm gonna move on. Supervisor's report is in your packet. Things are going along fine. I do want to point out to you gentlemen, when we were doing our budgets originally, we talked about a roof replacement here that we know needs to be done. The roof is 20-some years old, it's leaking. We did go out for bids for the roof, to replace the roof on this building, and we were pleasantly surprised. The highest bid was $81,694 and change. The lowest bidder was $41,650, and there was 8 bidders for this project.
Prevailing wage?
Prevailing wage. This contract,
$41,000?
$41,650 was the lowest bidder. He was the lowest bidder by about $7,000 to $8,000 cheaper than the next lowest bidder. Some of your questions I would ask them also would be, did McHenry County or McHenry Township companies bid on this? They did, at least county companies. Cost Roofing, Copley Roofing and Supply bid on it. Those two for sure I know are McHenry County companies. The company that was awarded the contract is Select Construction. They're out of Chicagoland area. I don't have the information exactly where they're out of. We did verify them as a good contractor. They've done some other government buildings in Naperville and other things, and they were very happy with their work. So we are in the process now of selecting a shingle color, which probably will be very similar to what we have. Just to make sure they don't order red shingles or purple shingles on us without us approving. So that will be completed before fall, to let you know that.
Thanks for sharing that information.
What was the bid?
The bid to replace the entire roof was $41,650. We had budgeted $60,000 because we had gotten, a basic estimate saying that was thought that that's what will come in around. So we're happy to say we're saving about $19,000.
So that was a total tear down and replacement?
That's a total tear off and replacement, yes.
And replacing anything that might be damaged underneath?
I'm not gonna, you're gonna have to further get back to me on that. I don't know if there's, there may be additional costs for plywood depending upon.
That's only reasonable if there's extra cost for that.
There usually is extra cost if you're replacing plywood. I'm sure that's in there because nobody would bid it without doing that. I believe, so.
That'd be reasonable.
It would be by the sheet, Okay. And we don't feel, where there is leaks, there might need a couple pieces of plywood, but I would think the majority of the rooms.
Is there a lot of leaks or just a couple?
There is just a couple big ones. And those areas.
And for how long have they been leaking?
A year and a half, 2 years possibly, and it's been getting worse. All right, and we've tried to patch them to eliminate this problem, but they never could successfully patch or find where they were leaking from. So we were trying to avoid a total replacement. All right, any questions on my reports on the packet? Okay, none being heard, I'm on to the assessor's report.
Okay, we have turned in our assessments to the county, so they're in the county's hands right now, and once they are done with it, they'll publish the notices, send out the letters, hopefully by the end of the month. They are a little backed up there in the county, but we're hoping that the notices will go out by the end of the month. Once we do know when the appeal time will be, which again depends on when the notices are mailed out, we will be again setting some extended hours in the weekend for the weekends and evening hours for people who can't get here during the business day. We did make approximately about 1,500 changes of properties, and that included 6 subdivisions that were updated and revalued. And also at this time we do anticipate getting a township factor of a positive 6.55. So even if we didn't make any changes in a property assessment, you should see a 6.55% increase. And that's a number that comes from the state that tells us the difference between where properties are selling and where they are assessed. this will be our third year of a positive factor, reflective of increase in sales. Other than that, that's all I have.
Any questions? Any questions of the assessor? Okay. None being heard, we'll move on to the Highway Commissioner's report.
You have my written report. No change in non-dedicated roads that have applied to the county to be accepted into the that have been requested to be accepted into the county non-dedicated subdivision road program. They have not moved on any of those subdivisions that we've submitted. Our road program, paving Lincoln Road is one of our projects this year, and it's under construction. It's begun. You'll see quite a mess out there right now. And that should be completed and paved by the end of October. Our Ringwood Road project is completed. Again, that was done in conjunction with Ringwood, Johnsburg, Mchenry, and I believe McCollum Lake was also, Wonder Lake were also involved, but I'm not positive about that. Our annual paving program has been completed, and we are working on the shoulders right now, and should be done with that within the next week or so. This year's reclamite treatment was completed today on the roads that were paved last year. It started yesterday and finished today, and then we'll be out tomorrow sweeping the areas that were treated with reclamites yesterday and today. Crack seal treatment. We are proceeding with our crack seal treatment of various roads, and we've given them the go-ahead for a couple of locations that we'll be doing crack seal treatment on this year. So that's moving on. Indian Ridge tree clearing, I believe, is almost complete, if it's not complete already, and they are beginning the culvert replacement in the 4th phase of that project. IGA, non-dedicated subdivision roads in the county. At either our last meeting or the meeting before, I think Mr. Beltran had mentioned how much have we spent of the $49,000 plus or minus. So we went back and looked at that, and we've actually spent between snow plowing, ourselves, contractors, and doing some vegetation trimming and doing other maintenance like pumping out East Lake Shore Drive where there's a pocket in Lookout Point. We've actually spent about $70,000 on that already. So we have actually spent all the money that we've done. The county has asked us and emailed us as of today a proposed intergovernmental agreement where they would pay us $5,000 a mile like they've done in last year. And we are probably in negotiations with them on that based on what our costs were last year. I will tell you that they decided to go out and get bids for the work that we do. And that's just the snow plowing, not the annual, the trimming and the pumping of the water out of East Lake Shore Drive and things like that, problem areas that they have. They went out to bid, they put it out for an estimated 40 event winter, and it came back with prices of somewhere around $7,000 or $8,000 per mile. So I'm not so sure that that doesn't, nothing else justifies a cost or a fiscal impact study that right there would, for those of you who are disputing that. And so that's it for the non-dedicated roads that are in, or were non-dedicated roads that are now in the county. That's the work that we've done with them. We completed our monthly recycling. We've provided the totals for you there. And our next one again is August 18th. Salt dome conveyor, they have some minor modifications to make on the hopper, and they've just received the parts for that. They were just delivered, and they should be out here Monday to finish that up. Mowing, we'll start mowing probably next week for the Labor Day holiday. Try to get the main roads done before then. This year, in a program that we started last year, and we'll be doing more this year, is the backside of the ditch. We're actually going to leave the grass tall through the winter to see if that doesn't help with drifting and things like that out in the prairie, up in the higher areas of Miller Road and South Solon Road and parts of Ringwood Road. Leave that grass a little taller on that backside and see if that doesn't help with drifting instead of not so, and then hopefully not have so much snow fence. When we road striping, we started our road striping this week, or the truck was out. We've been doing manual striping for over a week now. But we've started our striping with the vehicle as of this week, and should be done within 4 weeks there. We completed some non-dedicated roads. We've assisted them in maintenance. We've actually paved 3 different sections of road recently with the use of road and bridge funds that are made available to them. We paved 3 roads, and then we helped Nippersink subdivision. One of the things that was happening with Nippersink subdivision is that they were using their MFT funds to do maintenance on their roads, and they have gravel roads, and so they would hire a contractor to bring gravel in, spread it, and then packed it, and then use the MFT funds to pay that contractor. Unfortunately, because of the pace of payment from the county through the MFT funds, they can't find any contractors to do the work because it's not a lot of money. It's $5,000 or $10,000, and to wait 90 to 120 days to get paid, it's just not worth their while. So they don't do it. They couldn't find anybody, so we went out there and actually used some of the MFT funds to fill those potholes for them and compacted them. So we helped them out. In addition to that, there was 3 roads that we helped out with. We'd received a call from Hilltop between Brook and Sunset on Deep Springs that was pretty deteriorated, and we used road and bridge funds and the assistance of Mchenry Township through an exchange of services to get that paved. A section of Shorewood, that's a non-dedicated section, and a section of Woodrow, which is in Schaefer's North Shore. So we are trying to help those non-dedicated subdivisions out to get them some pavement and try to make it a little bit better for them through the use of the road and bridge fund money that we made available to them. There was a question earlier about the solar farm drainage and a public comment on doesn't the county have any jurisdiction over that, and do we review that or not. Actually, all the on-site drainage is under the jurisdiction of the county through their stormwater ordinance. So when that development goes through, those people will be required to verify they comply with the stormwater ordinance and the restricted release rates of that stormwater ordinance. When it enters into our property, in other words, the right-of-ways, then we do have jurisdiction. But I can tell you from experience that what those people will have to do with those improvements will significantly reduce the peak release rates through our right-of-ways. So we do have jurisdiction within our right-of-ways only, but the major jurisdiction is the counties through their stormwater ordinance, and they're the ones who enforce that throughout the county, unless it's in a municipality. So hopefully that answers your question there. And that is all I have, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
A couple questions.
Yep.
The new backhoe that you got, that you needed to do that subdivision. Have you used the new backhoe that you?
We've used it for the complete culvert replacement program. It's extremely much more efficient. It's a lot easier. The trenches are much narrower. The material that we use is a lot less. It's just a much more efficient process than just using the grade all. And the other upside to it was we got a little bit backed up because of rain and things like that. We were able to do the culverts with that and then use the grade all to actually do the ditching, which worked out really nice. So it really gave us some flexibility too. So we greatly appreciate the ability to acquire that piece of equipment. So thank you.
Did you do any work on those back lots that you showed us? Those floodplains?
You mean the rear yards of those? Right, we have not done any of that yet, no.
I've got a question about reclamite.
Reclamite, yes.
Yeah. What is the need for that and the process that's involved?
If you do the research on it, and I'll probably screw up some of the terms, but the purpose of reclamite is prior to the level of refining that occurs in oil now. And in the past, in the older days, 20 years ago, they were not able to refine oil so well. And what we make asphalt out of is the tar that's left. Well, they've been able to refine it so that tar quality is less and less and less. Okay? So the asphalt that we now get out of the plants isn't what it was 20 or 30 years ago. What reclamite is, it's an emulsification, I believe is what the proper term is. It actually adds in some of those chemicals or the properties that are taken out in that improved refining. And what it does is it adds flexibility to the pavement, and it adds and it fills in the pores that develop in the pavement. So what it does is it basically, the big key to the pavement life, as long as the pavement has the structural capacity, is to keep the water out of the pavement and out of the base. Because once it gets into there, then you get the freeze thaw, then the rising cracks and things like that. So what Reclamite does is it provides that flexibility back into the pavement. Because of the oxidation in the pavement, it'll become brittle and crack. That adds more flexibility into it and some more impermeability to it, so that the water doesn't go into the pavement and then into the base, so that then when you get the freeze thaw, that's where the ground runs in, the base softens and things like that. So that's the purpose of it. Although our research that we've done shows that it is successful in doing it, and as a matter of fact, the county does it. Lake County has studied it for 4 years, I think, or 5 years, and finally this last year is implementing it. And it's been implemented in 7 municipalities, and even in the area here. City of Mchenry does it, county does it, Woodstock does it. I can go on. But there's a ton of it that's done, and the purpose for it, if you put it in, they recommend that you do it within the first year or so, and then do another treatment 5 to 7 years down the road. And what that does is it'll take the life of your pavement from anywhere on a main road of 12 to a subdivision road of 15, to get it up to 15 to 20 years. So you're trying to add 5 to 7 years of life. And you say, well, yeah, but what's the cost of it? What should it cost to do that? I mean, if it costs us, 3 times the road cost to put this down, that doesn't make sense. What we figured out was, in rough estimates, that the cost to put it down, and if a pavement has a life cycle of 15 years, the cost to put the Reclamite down is about 1 year's worth of pavement cost if you spread it over 15 years. And to gain 5 to 7 years of life on the pavement is a pretty easy number to figure out. That's what you should be doing. So that's what we're doing.
So when you put this Reclamite down, you give it a few days, I'm sure.
You put it down, it actually dries pretty quickly. The only reason why they put the sand down is because it takes about an hour or two to set up, and so you have to make sure that you have the friction that you need, otherwise cars will be sliding around. So they put it down, then they put the gravel down, and then the next day they come and vacuum it up, unless it's a weekend or something like that.
So is that swept off then?
A sweeper, they actually come through with a sweeper and will sweep all that up.
Now does that have to be restriped?
No, what happens over time is the striping that's done, it'll actually wear off. That'll wear off of the striping and it'll come through.
At the last meeting, we talked about subdivisions that are requesting to bring the roads in, and I offered to help you go to these subdivisions and talk to them about maybe coming up with some equity in the process, and I want to offer that again.
I would first recommend, the issue that we have is it's really up to the county. Those are county roads now. The issue is that they are county roads, and it's a county decision that has to be made. So it's really going to be up to the county. Otherwise, I would say, and I think if you hear from any of the non-dedicated roads, would agree that I'm glad to sit down and talk and come up with any plans. But I can tell you, and we've offered to sit down with the county, a couple of interesting things that have happened with the county is the county, I guess the county didn't necessarily think that I knew what I was talking about with Indian Ridge and the cost to do Indian Ridge. And they didn't like the numbers that H.R. Green came up with when H.R. Green looked at the cost to improve the roads that are in the county now but not repaired, similar to Indian Ridge, other areas that they have. I think it's 9 miles or something. And so they asked their own staff, sorry about that, they asked their own staff to do a study of what it would cost. And they looked at Orchard Beach was one of them, and I forget some of the other ones. But they're coming up with the same numbers of around $500,000 or more to do these improvements to these roads. So I think they're in a little bit of a conundrum in that they're not sure how to proceed with this, because they were led to believe that it would just be $350,000 a mile. And even their staff has pointed out that that's not the case. And right now, they propose to do $256,000 a mile. I've agreed to do that on 3 of our roads just to try to move it along and get something done. But some of the roads, like Lookout Point,
You know, that's, the HR Green, I think, estimated $1 million a month because it's so up and down, and to take the drainage and do the improvements that should be done so that it doesn't become a burden to the township. So I'd be glad to sit down with them, but it's really up to the county to do something with those roads.
So I'd be, once again, we'll offer to
Yep.
work with you.
Okay, any more questions for the road commissioner? Okay, none being heard. I make a motion that due to pending litigation by Mr. Robert Beltram and et al., other people that are with them apparently, that we move to executive session to discuss this.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? None being heard, we're going to move to executive session. You can stay, we will be back, but I don't know how long.
Oh, you're gonna go out.
We're going.
Oh, we thought we had to later.
It's not a signature.
Well, I think we got enough. Everybody I hear, I told you.
Okay, where's Dan at? Did Dan go to the meeting? Mike. Did Dan go there?
Yes, they went to the executive session.
Oh. So we have to sign these papers later.
About a banner that he became Tier. Jerry's the leader of ATR is the same new way. With the comment, and now that we have the responsibility, we need to see the new. Thank you for your service.
Let's go.
Oh, you're going to be part of this.
Why would
I'll bring kids to the meeting on Monday. Huh? What? People.
Hopefully you don't
Vice Chairman also, well, there's gonna be a lot of options.
Right, yeah, you just got a wrecking ball. So we're gonna try to stop it.
At one of the meetings, I said, you know, the problem with the river. Also builds out, make sure, and the wrecking ball can't go there.
And what they should look into is what is going to, there's the empty seats. So what does form equal with an empty seat there? Does that change the form as options for either boards? And it'd be a lot easier to get someone in, that would be good. But does that change the open seat? So if, let's say, we had 3 board members resign, you can never have 4 meetings.
Are you set up to vote?
Yeah,
By mail?
yeah, so, I actually was out in the country. I did missionary work for, 2 years out of high school. And last year, before I went off to school this year, I was working in Congressman Halton's office, in his new district office, the Mchenry office. And so I was in Australia though during the general election of 2016, and I arranged back then for Mary McClellan's office to mail a ballot all the way out there. And for this election, they have to wait until I'm there.
No, yesterday you could send in yesterday was the day to send to the county clerk your request to receive your ballot by mail. So get online tonight when you get home and do that.
Yeah, I have to wait until I get there to see my address though. Yeah, they haven't given us that information yet. So.
Okay, and then 3 weeks before the election, you'll get your ballot.
Yeah, so works out very well.
I didn't know who was your address.
No, it's very interesting. My university owns the campus in America, but they also own this campus that is in Austria. And
Where are you going?
I'm going to be in the Austrian campus this semester, so it's going to be a very interesting opportunity. But the one issue with that is that each person has their own individual mailing address that they haven't assigned to us yet. They'll assign it the first week there. So it's a little complicated.
Where in Austria?
It's about an hour outside Vienna. It's a little town called County. It's an absolutely beautiful area. It's in the Swiss Alps, or the Austrian Alps rather. So it is a great opportunity, but the university doesn't have all the information for us right away. So
3 weeks from now you'll be in Austria.
yeah, and then the university has classes for us Monday through Thursday, and since they own this campus over there, they can decide all the schedules and everything. And they take us Friday, Saturday to some different place in Europe, which especially as a theology major, I'm going to be seeing a lot of places that I'm studying, so it works out very well. But I'll be seeing the majority of Europe, and then I'm actually leading a half-month long, me personally, leading a half-month long mission trip along over there for some Eastern European country that's affected by communism still. So someplace that is still recovering from the Soviet regime. So that'll be a very interesting opportunity to be over there. So yeah, pretty good. Definitely. It was a very nice opportunity because it was an in-depth tuition cost. Being on our main campus in America. So it was kind of a no-brainer to go over there.
I was just asking you because when I first came here, there was a row of rattle. They used to sit in the valley.
Yeah, they were in our county.
Yeah, they're from
Greenwood. They're from Greenwood.
It was so ugly. It was so sick. It was so horrible. I couldn't stand it. But then those guys disappeared.
I'm one of the four. Suggested I move up. Steve Ayers, the fifth one, Joanne, one more. I'm happy with the, I ain't for it, they all was better than this. I mean, it's for great,
Look how nice the meeting there without anything. I mean, even, agree with that.
One of the different areas.
Yes, you would, but we should, not in the city, not in
Those, only north lines, and we got down south that one, so. Well, best of luck to all the big. So did you learn how to pronounce all of them? Yes, especially with the New Zealanders versus Australians, since I spent so much time over there, I was able to figure out the difference between their accents. Is Australians can say the letter E, and the Kiwis pronounce everything that has an E in it as an I. So fishing net, Kiwis pronounce it a fishing net. And then all their different things over there. I actually have English, American Yes, no, it's a beautiful place. So, but yeah, should have made it down. Yeah, I hear that the mountains down there are absolutely beautiful. I've got to see Hobbiton while I was there. Oh yeah. So, and well, that's in the south. Hobbiton's on. No, yeah, no, I know. That's right.
And there were always these certain people, but it was time for them to talk. The only thing we talked about was cut the taxes. They never had a vision, they never had a plan, they never had a sense of what they were to accomplish. Nothing.
Thanks. Best of luck to all of you. I'll see you on Northwest Railroad.
Let's go.
Cat. Romy Cat.
Oh.
No,
But these people, there were a bunch running in the
yeah, it's something that the Catholics we lack in terms of youth mission work. We have a lot of outreach programs for individual parishes, and we actually, being the largest religion in the entire world, have parishes pretty much everywhere. So a lot of our outreach is generally in one area, so we don't send people that often across. Muslims are very close to taking over as the largest religion in the world, but they right now are about 400 million people, something like that. But yeah, it's very much so struggling. Roman Catholic, yeah, but yeah, so Catholics though definitely do send a lot of people to do like 1 week mission trips and whatnot, maybe to places like Haiti, sometimes places in Africa. But it's not necessarily spiritual. It's not just that. Yeah, definitely. And a lot of that's with the Catholics, a lot of what they do down in places like Haiti is helping to build shelters and whatnot. But then my missionary organization is actually the premier Catholic youth ministry organization in the United States, started about 35 years ago. And it's basically every single missionary is under the age of 28. And we walk over 100,000 miles per year between 18 separate teams. So this missionary organization is actually not connected to a specific religious order, but we do have a lot of Franciscans that come in. The university I go to is Franciscan run, but it's in terms of orders, we're probably most closely associated to Franciscans, but we aren't officially part of any sort of Franciscan missionary outreach program. So the Franciscans are more humanitarian than Jesuits are more studies and whatnot, but Franciscans are good at legal studies. So the academia is definitely the Jesuits' strong suit. But with my missionary organization, the Franciscan Order in general, it's also very charismatic as well. So there's It's actually, in our philosophical theology, we say that the soul has three main faculties to it, and the two great faculties are your intellect and then your will. And that's something that every single person is blessed with, is having those things, so.
What's the two?
The third one would be your emotions, but those ones are not considered to be the great faculties. Those are a lesser faculty, because what they differentiate, and this goes back to Aristotle, what it differentiates, what they differentiate is that without your intellect, so basically without your reasoning, you cannot inform your will, and your will cannot inform the emotions. So if you remove the intellect, or if you remove the will, and you just base entirely off emotions, then you cannot live a reasonable life. You cannot have the power of reason within you. But if you take out emotions, you still have your intellect as well, then you are able to at least have a reason. So in order to be a rational human being, which that's how they differentiate between animals and humans, is animals are not rational versus humans, which are.
I would argue with that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's how they differentiate.
Because people are less rational than spin.
Yeah, and that one, the animals versus humans, actually Plato, which is very complimentary to all those, and then sit there and compare it into the religion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll just point out that one of the messages of Christ was that the hierarchy, that compassion was high in the hierarchy. And compassion is an emotion.
it definitely
It's a combination of emotion and rational.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely is. And that is probably one of the greatest points, is that when it comes to the compassion, it's based off of the love for fellow man, which sometimes takes place in emotions and sometimes it takes place in actions. So going to the will, you have the will to do this action for someone else, care for them in some fashion. So it really goes through several different faculties with the compassion. So yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Anyways, that's what we feel.
Yes.
Get going.
Yes, very good. No,
Thank you.
I
It's been a great time.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Well,
Something we're doing.
all right. Well, I hope you all have great rest of your night.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Because those are in case.
If you see something wrong,
to get this done.
Well, I'm getting it done.
I will think that I'm bringing in Northern Illinois progressives.
yeah, well, it sounds like it's appears it must be a lively discussion that's taking place.
Gee, why do you think so? Maybe they realize it, yes.
It'd be nice to have be a fly on the wall.
Yep. Maybe they realize,
What's that?
what, are we gonna be here?
Monday, yes. Monday.
Why would we, you mean, where?
She means at the
Oh, non-dedicated roads, yeah.
We were actually scheduled to leave Monday, but I don't.
No,
we're gonna
which
make
Monday?
it.
This Monday,
The
the 20th.
Yeah.
We're not leaving the 20th. We have to use that to come back out of the garage.
Okay, thank you.
I have any
for it if you.
Yeah, she's very generous.
Return to your seats.
Bobby actually brought the peanuts back.
What?
He said you brought the nuts back, I'm surprised.
Plus I might take them, I know.
We probably would have eaten them, you're right about
You
that.
might eat them. Did you guys, did we sign everything? I only signed this one, the town one, this is mine, I don't know whether, this one's done, and the other one, when we get on it. Is all three on that one? We're all three on both, on this.
Here I'm missing someone. I got Mike.
You gotta sign Dan and Bob. Is the other one? The other one. That filled up.
I didn't sign, I only signed.
Bob, you have to sign.
What, oh, I'm sorry.
Did we close the meeting already?
No, not yet. Okay.
They
Um,
just got here.
Gentlemen, I make a motion to reconvene our regular meeting. It is 9:31.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we're through executive session. Are there any board member comments at this time? None being heard. We'll move on. Are there any public comments at this time? I did have Mr. Oh, go ahead, Mr. McCready.
Hope the executive session went well. I just want to say I totally agree with the three comments I made probably before the meeting started. With Bob, Brandon, and our former road commissioner. I mean, 100% behind me. I want to get back to the annual meeting where we won 76-0 to do a study. I just want to repeat that the study doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend money. We should get a qualified group of people to do the study. When I initially had the petition presented at the annual meeting, it necessarily wasn't about spending money. As constituents, we just want to know if we can save money or not. It's that simple. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everybody, I have Mr. Steve Muir on the agenda here to speak now. I take it he has left. Okay, not being seen. Let the record show I did call him. He's not present. Anybody else? Okay, last call. Anybody else? None being heard. We're going to move on. I need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Bob Anderson for adjournment. I need a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Rakestraw. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Good.
Make sure you sign all the papers, guys, for you.
We got it.
Oh, okay. I can take care of it, yeah. So I send it directly to you.
She had her people on Tuesday, she's sick of it all.
I gotta call you.
Gotta go through it.
Stays on the ballot.
Oh, hi.
Take care. On you too. Gotta take care. Good night.
Take care, gentlemen. Deliver for next month's meeting, and then you contact some of the adjacent townships to get their thoughts.
And we're just gonna discuss at the next meeting, yes, it's get their thoughts are correct. And then, my understanding is that this board would like to go to the county board and ask them if they're interested in funding it, or funding part of it at least. Okay. Everyone would have to agree, I guess, would be, all the bodies would have to agree to fund it.
And just say, we have no authority over those, obviously.
Sure. And I did speak with Jack Franks a little earlier this afternoon, and he said just there would have to be some manner of plan before, you know, the county board members to come to the table, basically. Just with the discussions with these adjacent townships, do you think that would be enough of that would gather enough sort of input and information to come to the board with a proposal that they would find acceptable?
It's a hard question to answer. I don't know. I don't know how the other townships are going to, if they're going to be in favor of this or not in favor of this. So I guess if the majority of them would want to be in favor of this, then we could go as a group to the county board and ask for their consideration. But that's a big question, if there would be enough in favor.
And I did have to step out of the room while
Sure.
most of the road district discussion was underway. Is that just kind of the same situation with the consolidation, to where it's just going to be brought up again under an old business discussion item for next meeting?
Gotta refresh my memory. What did we want to do? No, the next meeting, we wanted to, it was nothing about the road district. It was to move forward to further discuss the consolidation of the townships, and see if there was interest from the townships. And then my assumption is then to approach the county board if there is interest.
And so at this point, that won't be a further discussion item, the road district for next meeting?
At this point in time, it is not.
All right, that should be it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Did the insurance stuff, last night, was it okay?
I'm sorry, what?
The insurance stuff? When we sent you the,
Did I get it?
I sent it, I'm asking you if it's okay.
What did you send it to?
That they made you the officers and officers. On the, for the 18th. The insurance.
I know what you're talking about. I remember getting the first one, it didn't have the second thing on
Right.
there.
But the second one,
Which order did you send it to? That would be my question.
well, the same one that you came to me with.
Supervisor.
Right.
I might have missed it, John, let me go back.
No, I'm just double checking. I don't want you last minute, you know?
Yeah, no, I wanna make sure, I was just gonna talk to you about that because I hadn't seen it, that doesn't mean I didn't miss it.
I just wanna wait till you're ready.
I'll look for a morning.
Because I'm waiting here, I haven't heard from John's yet.